Hello, friends. This is Fitz, Stam Scribe, and Soul Scribe. In our last episode, we explored a couple of passages from a letter that the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe of Chabad, Reb Menachem Mendel, wrote to himself, kind of like cliff notes of a motivational self-talk, where he's surveying his own life, his own progress, motivating himself. And this week is a part 2 of that, where I'd like to highlight another couple of passages from that letter. As a matter of fact, the 2 passages that I present to you here are the very first passage of the letter and the very last passage of the letter. So this letter opens with the Tzemach Tzedek quoting a pasuk, a verse from Divrei Hayomim, where it's talking about Yehoshaphat, who was a king of Yehuda, of Judea. And the pasuk speaks of him as a good king, as a king that was faithful to the God of Abraham, to the Jewish tradition. And the verse, the pasuk says, "Vayigba libe b'darchei Hashem." His heart was elevated and uplifted in the ways of God. So the Tzemach Tzedek expounds on this. Al derech mosei agiu ma'aseh. The Tzemach Tzedek draws a parallel between this verse that speaks of one's heart soaring in the ways of God to a medrash where the medrash says that every single Jew can in fact demand and aspire to his actions being of the same quality and of the same caliber as the 3 forefathers of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So the Tzemach Tzedek is making this connection, saying there's basically implying there's no limit to how much one can in fact aspire to and how high one can soar, even to the level of one's action being of the same quality and of the same caliber as the forefathers. The king Kosav Alshich bepirush lekal kanesher shema oifiv yeser gevoya mikol adam. Interestingly, there's a Mishnah in the way of our fathers, Pirkei Avos, where the Mishnah says that the one is meant to be light as an eagle. And the Alshich interprets this to mean that the one is meant to soar higher and higher and higher above all people. Meaning to say, sometimes a person is growing in their life and they can look over to the person next to them or the person on the other side of them and say, well, I've achieved more than they've achieved. I've outgrown their level, so I'm good. I'm content with that. That's sufficient. And as a matter of fact, though, the Alshich is pointing out to us when the Mishnah teaches that one should be light as an eagle, this actually means that a person continues to soar higher and higher and higher. It doesn't matter where other people are at. It doesn't matter if a person has achieved or grown beyond others. What matters is that they just continue going, similar to the eagle that continues to soar and soar and soar and soar above all other birds. So this verse that speaks of one's heart soaring in the ways of God basically invites us to continue always to soar and to grow and to climb and to expand and to deepen as a self-referential process. In other words, not looking at any one of our colleagues or our counterparts or our friends or the people in our environment. It's irrelevant where they've come to, and it doesn't even matter if we've outgrown their level. This is irrelevant. A person is simply meant to be ongoingly soaring and growing and climbing. There's no limit to the expansion that's possible. Now I'd like to highlight the last line of this letter, where the Tzemach Tzedek reflects on another teaching of Pirkei Avos, of the ways of our Father, where the Mishnah states, "V'al tihi rasha b'fnei atzmecha." Do not perceive yourself, do not conceive of yourself as wicked, as evil. And he says, "Shetzarech muchach." This clearly implies, "Shetzarech liyas rochik me'rasha be'enei atzmei." This must be, it must be that a person needs to be very far from evil in his own eyes. Now, this is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. The Tzemach Tzedek is saying that when the Mishnah enjoins us, don't perceive of yourself and conceive of yourself in a negative light, in a evil or wicked light. The Tzemach Tzedek is taking this even further and pointing out to himself, because as we said, this is a letter that he's writing to himself, that it is absolutely necessary for a person to actually be, for a person's own self-conception, their concept of themselves, to be very far from evil or wicked. So often, I have encountered this in my own life, in my own journey, as well as in the journeys of other people who I connect with and who I share with. So often, there's this dominant spirit of self-condemnation, of self-judgment, of perceiving oneself as wicked, as evil. So often, we're afraid that if we let go of this judgment, if we let go of this assumption, we will just deteriorate into total wickedness and total evil. So we need to hold on to this idea. We need to hold on. We need to claw and hold on for dear life, because we really secretly believe that we're wicked and we're evil. And that kind of tension and that kind of anxiety and that kind of harshness actually keeps a person locked in place and doesn't allow them to grow. And it's counterintuitive, because a person sometimes conceives of themselves as wicked, they think, if I let go of that self-conception, I'm just going to deteriorate, which is actually an expression of that self-conception. It's actually an expression of that belief that I'm wicked. Why else would I just deteriorate if I let go of being harsh and condemnative toward myself? Obviously, because I'm wicked. So the superstition and the projection that one will just deteriorate, one will just turn into a couch potato or be a rabid sinner or just completely out of control, that projection is in fact the expression of the assertion of the belief of the concept of oneself as being wicked and evil. And it just can feel so scary to let go of that and to begin to entertain the possibility that I'm not wicked and I'm not evil. And that's not the natural course of events for me to just unravel and deteriorate into wickedness and into evil. So sometimes it can feel scary to let go of that self-identity. But what I find so interesting here is I wonder if there's actually a connection between the first passage in this teaching and the last. I wonder if he opens up talking about how a person is meant to soar in the ways of God, to grow endlessly, to climb, to expand, to deepen, to evolve. Then I wonder if it's not directly connected with the last teaching of this letter, where he says a person should be far from wicked in his own perception of himself and in his own identity. Because I think it's only through letting go of ideas of ourselves as being wicked and evil that our true nature can actually begin to come out. And that's kind of the wind that lifts us up. That's the wind that blows behind our wings and allows us to soar and allows us to become who we are and allows us to fill up our own beingness and express who we are in the world and make the impact that we're meant to make. So I don't know. I'm just sharing with you the way it occurs to me. Each teaching individually is poignant. And I think that there might be a connection between the two. That through a person's self-identity, self-conception being actually far from the notion of wickedness and evil, through a person embracing the possibility that they're actually good and letting go of the assertion that they're bad, they're wicked, they're evil, they'll deteriorate into negativity unless they shame themselves and guilt themselves and condemn themselves. That actually frees a person up and allows them to soar, maybe. I love you all. Thank you for receiving this. If you'd like to be in a conversation, maybe to let go of some of your own negative self-identity, maybe to discover deeper and higher levels of soaring or growth, whatever it is, I'd love to be in conversation with you. Thank you.